My husband moved his pregnant mistress into our home while I was on a work trip. So I came back. I came home early to surprise my husband. But the surprise was already sitting at my kitchen table. Barefoot. 7 months pregnant. Wearing his hoodie. And when Daniel walked down those stairs and saw me standing in my own doorway, he didn't run to me. He didn't reach for me. He just stopped. 4 years of marriage. 14 months of lies. And in that one moment, one single, shattering moment, I understood everything. Every unanswered call. Every cancelled plan. Every night he came home just a little too quiet. I wasn't losing my mind. I was losing my husband. And I didn't even know it. This is the story of the night I walked into my own home, and became a stranger in it. The flight landed at 11:47 p.m. I wasn't supposed to be back until Thursday, but the conference ended 2 days early and I wanted to surprise Daniel. 4 years of marriage, and I still believed in surprises. That faith, I now know, was the most expensive thing I ever owned. He didn't answer when I called from the taxi. I told myself he was sleeping. I told myself a lot of things that night that I will spend the rest of my life unlearning. Our house on Elmore Street was lit up when the cab pulled in. Every downstairs light burning. Soft music drifting from inside. My stomach did something I had no language for, not quite fear, not quite knowing, just a slow, crawling wrongness that my heart recognized before my mind was ready to. I unlocked the front door with my own key. She was sitting at my kitchen table. Barefoot. Round with a belly that was 7, maybe 8 months full. She had both hands wrapped around my favorite mug, the ceramic one Nadia brought me from Istanbul, and she was wearing Daniel's gray university hoodie. The one I used to steal on cold mornings and wear until noon without guilt. She looked at me the way you look at someone who has walked into the wrong house. For 3 full seconds, the world made no sound. Then Daniel came down the stairs. Freshly showered, hair still damp. He froze on the 4th step when his eyes found mine, and in that freezing, in that one involuntary, guilty stillness, he told me everything without saying a single word. The mug. The hoodie. The belly. The stairs. His face. Everything assembled itself in my mind like shattered glass flying backward into a mirror, whole, hideous, and perfectly clear. "Sarah," he said. "Don't." My voice didn't shake. "I still don't understand how." "Don't say my name like that." "Not right now." "I was going to tell you." "When?" The word left me like something I had been holding underwater. "When were you going to tell me, Daniel?" "When she was decorating my living room for a baby shower." He came down the remaining steps slowly, both hands out, the way you approach something fragile and cornered. "I know how this looks. She's wearing your hoodie." My voice cracked, not on the betrayal, not on the pregnancy, not on the months of careful, constructed lies, on the hoodie. That soft gray hoodie I had worn against my skin 100 times, thinking it smelled like safety. "She has a key to this house, doesn't she?" He said nothing. And his silence was the most truthful thing he had offered me in God knows how long. I looked at her then. Really looked. She was young, 24, maybe 25. She had the grace to appear frightened. She set my mug down gently, as if she understood, on some level, what she was holding. "What is her name?" I asked Daniel. "Sarah, please." "What is her name?" "Layla," he said quietly. I nodded once. I walked slowly to the counter and stood there looking at the kitchen I had painted myself, the warm yellow I chose after 3 weekends of samples, the curtains I hemmed by hand, the refrigerator covered in magnets from every trip we had taken together. Venice. Lisbon. Marrakesh. Copenhagen. Photographs of 2 people who, apparently, never truly knew each other at all. "How long?" I asked, without turning around. The silence stretched so long it became its own answer. How long, Daniel? 14 months. My hand found the refrigerator door. Cold metal beneath my palm. Solid. Unmovable. Real, the way almost nothing else in that moment felt real. 14 months. Our last anniversary was 13 months ago. He took me back to the restaurant where we had our very first date. He held my hand across the table. He cried when he gave me the card. He cried, and I touched his face, and I thought, this is what real love looks like. And all that time, this was already happening. I pressed my hand harder against the cold door. I breathed. I made a decision in the silence that followed, not a dramatic one, not a loud one, just a quiet, devastating shift inside my chest, like a door closing on a room I would never enter again. I need you to understand something, I said, very slowly, my back still to him. I am not going to scream. I am not going to fall apart in front of you tonight. Because you don't deserve to witness what this is doing to me right now. I finally turned. You lost the right to see that. I picked up my overnight bag from the floor. Where are you going? He asked. And that question, in that house, on that night, nearly destroyed me. I stopped at the door. I turned and looked at him one final time, this man I had loved with the kind of love that rearranges you from the inside. This man whose coffee order I knew by heart. Whose mother I remembered to call. Whose fears I had held in the dark like they were my own precious things to protect. I'm going, I said quietly, to remember who I was before I made you my whole world. And I walked out of my own front door. I drove to Nadia's apartment and sat in the parking lot for 40 minutes without moving. Engine off. Hands still on the wheel. The street outside was quiet and ordinary, a dog barking somewhere, a light in someone's window, and I kept thinking how strange it was that the world looked exactly the same as it had this morning. As if nothing had ended. As if everything had not just collapsed inside me like a building that had been hollow for years. My phone lit up. Daniel. 3 times. Then a text, please come back so we can talk. I turned the screen face down. Nadia must have seen me from her window because she appeared at the passenger door and simply got in. She didn't ask questions. She didn't gasp or reach for my hand dramatically. She just sat beside me in the dark, the way she has sat beside me through every hard thing since we were girls, and waited. She was wearing his hoodie, I finally said. The gray one. She was sitting at my table, in my kitchen, drinking from my mug, wearing his hoodie, and she looked at me like I was the one who didn't belong there. Nadia exhaled slowly. How far along? She asked quietly. 7, 8 months. Silence settled between us like snow. 14 months, Nadia. My voice fractured on the number. He looked me in the eye every single day for 14 months. He held my hand. He made me coffee. He told me he loved me, and every word was a performance. Every single word. Sarah. I turned down London for him. The words came now, one after another, unstoppable. Do you remember? The position I wanted more than anything, I turned it down because he said he needed me here. I rescheduled Mama's hospital visit because he had a firm dinner and said it would embarrass him if I wasn't there. A sound escaped me that wasn't quite a sob. I made myself so small, Nadia. I folded myself down to nothing so he would always feel like enough, and he was in another woman's arms, building a whole other life, while I was busy protecting his. Stop. Nadia grabbed my hand with both of hers. Hard. Grounding. Listen to me. You did not fail this marriage. He failed you. There is not one thing you could have done differently, because this was never about what you lacked. This was about who he chose to be. And he chose wrong. I pressed my palm over my eyes. I can still see her face, I whispered. She looked so frightened. And I stood there thinking, when did I become the person who frightens people in her own home? Nadia pulled me close and I let go completely, the way you cry when you are not only grieving a person, but grieving the version of yourself who trusted them. The woman who painted the kitchen yellow. Who kept every magnet from every trip. Who cried at the anniversary card because she believed every single word inside it. I cried for her. I cried for everything she gave and everything that was taken. Then, slowly, something shifted. Not healing, it was far too early for that. But something harder than grief. Something with edges. Something that held its own weight. I sat up. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. I looked at the windshield and beyond it at the amber glow of the parking lot lights, and I breathed, one long, deliberate breath, like a woman stepping out of the wreckage and choosing to stand. I'm calling London on Monday, I said. Nadia went very still. The position. I'm going to call and ask if it is still open. And I'm seeing a lawyer this week. I turned to look at her. I want the house settled. Not because I'll live there, I'll never sleep in that bedroom again, but because I painted that kitchen with my own hands, and I will not leave my own life behind. Sarah. Her voice was full. There she is. I spent 4 years shrinking myself so he would feel bigger. My voice was quiet now, and steady, and entirely my own. I am done being small. We sat together until nearly 2 a.m. And somewhere in that darkness, between the grief and the decision, I understood the lesson this pain had come to teach me, the one I would carry long after the anger faded and the legal papers were signed and the yellow kitchen belonged to someone else's story. You cannot pour your entire self into a person and call that love. Real love does not ask you to disappear. It does not require your silence or your smallness or your surrendered dreams. And when someone shows you, clearly, undeniably, in your own kitchen at midnight, that they never deserve the wholeness of who you are, the most powerful thing you can do is not to break. It is to leave. With your dignity. With your name. With every dream you set aside, and begin again. Daniel chose to build a lie inside my life. I chose to build my truth somewhere he could never reach it. And that night in Nadia's car, in that quiet, ordinary parking lot, I was not a woman destroyed. I was a woman, finally, set free. Never shrink yourself into silence to keep someone comfortable who is quietly building a life without you. A person who truly loves you will never make you feel like a stranger in your own home. Your worth was never in their hands, it was always yours, waiting for the moment you were brave enough to reclaim it.